Silence, please, all stand. Coroners goes out sitting.
Today, I will be delivering the findings and recommendations from the 2019-2020 New South Wales Bushfires Coronial inquests and inquiries. I'll just take appearances first.
May it please, Your Honour, my name's Castleton. I appear assisting Your Honour.
Thank you, Mr Castleton.
Please the Court, my name is Searle, initial I appear for the Mount Wilson residents.
Thank you, Mr Searle.
May it please Your Honour, my name is Power. I appear for the Commissioner of the Rural Fire Service, Forestry Corporation of New South Wales, Fire and Rescue New South Wales, and I mention the appearance of the National Park and Wildlife Service.
Thank you, Ms Power. And those on screen?
Your Honour, my name is Hodgetts, Hodgetts, initial P. With Your Honour's leave, I appear for the Commissioner of Police, New South Wales Police Force.
Thank you, Mr Hodgetts.
May it please the Court, my name is Lee, L.I., appearing for the Australian Transport Safety Bureau.
Thank you, Mr Lee.
And Your Honour, my name is Ms Wilkinson, initial C. I appear on behalf of Essential Energy.
Thank you, Ms Wilkinson. I'd like to acknowledge any family members watching on the live stream and all those who have suffered a loss as a result of the bushfires. Our thoughts are with you today. I will only be reading out extracts from my findings this morning, as my full findings are detailed in a much longer document comprising 2 volumes. This document will be published on the Coroners Court Bushfire webpage shortly after I deliver my findings today. A hard copy of the recommendations and these remarks will be available in court today. The 2019-2020 New South Wales bushfire season came to be known as Black Summer and was, without doubt, one of the most catastrophic on record. It was unprecedented in scale and intensity. Estimates suggest there were 11,774 fire incidents across New South Wales during this season, which lasted for 8 months. A statewide state of emergency was declared by the Premier 3 times between November 2019 and January 2020. The last fires were extinguished in March 2020 after 240 consecutive days of burning. There were 43 Section 44 declarations made and total fire bans were declared on 60 days, including 10 days of statewide total fire ban. Tragically, 25 people died in connection with these fires, including 7 firefighters. It is important at the outset to honour them and to acknowledge those who have endured a loss in what can only be described as horrific circumstances. Those who sadly lost their lives in connection with these fires were Lawrence Andrew, Russell Bratby, Colin Burns, John Butler, Michael Campbell, Vivian Chaplin, Michael Clark, Rick De Morgan Jr., Julie Fletcher, David Harrison, Paul Hudson, Gwendolyn Hyde, Jeffrey Keaton, Robert Lindsay, Ian Macbeth, Samuel McPaul, George Knoll, Andrew O'Dwyer, Barry Parsons, Ross Rickson, Patrick Solway, Robert Solway, Christopher Sava, John Smith, and Richard Steele. The immense loss this represents to their families, friends, and communities is acknowledged. I have been moved by the personal stories I've heard during this inquiry. The losses are immeasurable and the path to healing is no doubt difficult. I offer my heartfelt condolences. This was a fire season like no other, and the scale of loss is difficult to truly comprehend or adequately quantify. In addition to these deaths, over 5.52 million hectares of land were burnt, the largest recorded area of land burnt by bushfires in the state's history. The fires also destroyed 2,476 houses, 3 schools, 284 facilities, and 5,559 outbuildings. There were many more homes, facilities and buildings damaged by the fires. Almost 90,000 kilometres of boundary fencing was damaged, and it is estimated more than 13,000 livestock perished. The fires also had a significant impact on flora and fauna and have been described as an ecological disaster, with estimates that more than 800 million animals died as a result. More than 25% of the most suitable koala habitat in eastern New South Wales was within fire-affected areas. There were also over 330 threatened species and 37 threatened ecological communities protected under national environmental law that were in the path of the fires. These fires also had a devastating impact upon First Nations peoples, the traditional custodians of the lands. It is estimated that the national financial impacts of these fires are over $10 billion. Insurance claims from these bushfires across Australia numbered more than 38,000, with estimated losses of $2.32 billion. New South Wales accounted for 81%, or $1.88 billion of these losses. These figures are important, but do not capture the human tragedy or impact upon the community's collective psyche. Stories of personal experience have helped those of us not directly affected by the fires to understand how the events of that summer ravaged local communities. The sheer scale and ferocity of the fires burning simultaneously meant that resources were stretched across the state. This impacted the ability to deploy resources where required within the state and or to share interstate resources where fires were overlapping or burning at the same time in other parts of Australia. Against this background, it is remarkable the loss of life was not even higher. Despite the catastrophe, there have also been accounts of courage, heroism, selfless service and dedicated emergency service personnel who put their own safety on the line to protect the community during these bushfires. Some firefighting personnel lost their lives during heroic efforts to protect their communities. This inquiry was conducted in the knowledge that the trauma and grief that the fires wrought persists long after the last flame was extinguished, and that as communities grappled with the immediate aftermath of these fires, they were further threatened by the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in some areas, also devastation caused by flooding. The compassion and determination shown by communities during the bushfires and continuing to this day is clear evidence of the strength of the human spirit. Prior to this inquiry commencing, there had already been a number of important inquiries conducted at a local, state and national level in relation to the 2019-2020 New South Wales bushfire season. These included the New South Wales Government Bushfire Inquiry, the Royal Commission into Natural Disaster Arrangements, and the Senate Finance and Public Administration References Committee, Lessons to be Learned in relation to the Australian bushfire season 2019-2020. The work performed by this court was informed by the extensive work of those earlier inquiries, which had a different scope, intended focus and level of resourcing. It was not the function of this court to review the matters already addressed by the other inquiries. Section 27 of the Coroners Act requires a coronial inquest to be held where the manner and cause of a person's death has not been sufficiently disclosed. It is not the purpose of these proceedings to lay blame or to make decisions about liability to any person or organisation because of the fires. It is also not the role of this court to make findings about compensation or damages. I determined an inquest would be held into each of the 25 lives lost in connection with the fires. There were also more than 110 fires reported to the coroner. Section 30 of the Coroners Act provides the court with the power to hold an inquiry concerning the cause and origin of a fire where the coroner is satisfied the fire has destroyed or damaged any property within the state. The primary role of a coroner during a fire inquiry is to establish the cause and origin of the fire. I determined that 41 fire inquiries would be held, covering 46 fires. With respect to the remaining reported fires, I dispensed with the holding of an inquiry under Section 31 of the Act. Recommendations are an important part of a coronial process and can help to improve public health and safety and prevent similar events from happening again. Pursuant to Section 82 of the Coroners Act, a coroner can make any recommendations that are considered necessary or desirable to make in relation to any matter connected with a death or fire with which an inquest or inquiry is held. I have made 28 recommendations as a result of this inquiry. These are directed to the Commissioner for the New South Wales RFS, the Commissioner for the New South Wales Police Service, and the Chief Executive Officer of Essential Energy. I will address the recommendations later. The hearings were conducted in 2 stages over the course of 78 sitting days that commenced on the 25th of August 2021 and concluded on the 10th of August 2023. The size and geographic spread of the fires meant it was not possible for the court to travel to each affected community to conduct hearings locally. The planned conduct of these proceedings and the court's ability to travel and have scheduled hearings in some regional locations was significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The court quickly adapted to these challenges to ensure its important work could continue and be completed as quickly as possible. Where possible, the court travelled to regional areas. However, the majority of the hearings were relocated to Sydney and live-streamed, sometimes taking evidence relating to some fires from the same region then affected by floods. It was a credit to all involved that people made themselves available to participate remotely, even under exceptionally trying circumstances. A brief of evidence was tendered in each hearing, variously containing investigation reports, operational documents, witness statements, expert evidence, photographs, maps, charts, audio and video recordings. Witness statements were received from more than 780 witnesses, including police, operational staff directly involved in factual events, experts and eyewitnesses. It was not possible to call for oral evidence from every person that saw, heard or experienced something related to a fire or who was involved in some way. Oral evidence was taken from more than 190 witnesses where there was a forensic contribution to be made to the specific issues being considered by the court that extended beyond their written evidence. The total brief of evidence comprised more than 44,500 pages, as well as substantial electronic material. During September 2021 to June 2022, there were 41 fire inquiries held involving the 46 fires to determine the cause and origin of each fire, and 25 inquests were held to determine the manner and cause of each death in connection with the fires. Findings in relation to each of these Stage 1 hearings and the recommendations made are found in Volume 1 of my written findings. At the conclusion of each inquest, families of those who lost their lives were provided the opportunity to provide a statement to the court about their reflections of their loved ones. Families shared with the court happy moments, paying tribute to their loved ones through statements, music and photographs. It is difficult to do justice to these tributes in words. Testimonials received by the court have been set out in Volume 1 of my written findings. The court also has a power under Section 32 of the Coroners Act to hold a general inquiry, which extends to an examination of all the circumstances, including, but not limited to, the cause and origin of a fire. Following completion of the Stage 1 hearings, an assessment was made about systemic issues of public importance that required further analysis by the court through representative case study hearings. This assessment was informed by evidence heard during the earlier hearings, as well as public submissions received from those directly affected by the fires, which provided a unique insight into their personal experiences. I extend my thanks to those who took the time to make a submission. I determined that a general inquiry would be held into 17 fires to address the following systemic issues. 1. Investigation of fires by New South Wales Police and New South Wales RFS. 2. Communications and warnings. 3. Fire prediction modelling. 4. Bushfire risk classification. 5. Vehicle design and safety. And 6. Backburning operations, planning and execution. During these Stage 2 hearings, consideration was also given to whether any other recommendations were necessary or desirable to be made by this court. Since the 2019-2020 bushfire season, there have been many positive developments undertaken through the implementation of recommendations from the earlier inquiries. This court has had the unique opportunity to build on the work of the earlier inquiries and consider responses to recommendations arising from them. Findings made in relation to each of the Stage 2 hearings and recommendations made are set out in Volume 2 of my written findings. I've made 28 recommendations. There are 23 recommendations directed to the Commissioner for the New South Wales RFS. There is one recommendation directed to the Commissioner of the New South Wales Police Force. There are 2 recommendations jointly directed to the Commissioner of the New South Wales RFS and the Commissioner of the New South Wales Police Force. Finally, there are 2 recommendations directed to the Chief Executive Officer of Essential Energy. Full details of the recommendations are contained in my written findings. A hard copy of all the recommendations is available in court today. While much has occurred since the 2019-2020 bushfire season, the trauma and loss experienced by communities across the state is not forgotten. It will continue to be felt into the future and underlines the continued importance of these inquiries. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, is a United Nations body for assessing the scientific literature related to climate change, including its impacts and options for responding to it. Its objective is to provide governments at all levels with scientific information they can use to develop climate policies. While acknowledging that uncertainties exist in climate projections, the IPCC predicts with very high confidence that further climate change is inevitable, with the rate and magnitude dependent on the emissions pathway. Ultimately, the IPCC has noted that Australia's ability to adapt to climate change rests on better coordination and collaboration between government agencies, communities, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, not-for-profit organisations and businesses to help prepare for climate impacts such as wildfires, heat waves and droughts, in combination with future climate risks integrated into their decisions and planning. Work is already being undertaken, but more work is needed in light of the ongoing and intensifying climate risks. The need to adapt to climate change cannot be understated. This is a global responsibility. I wish to acknowledge the strength and patience of the families and friends of those who tragically lost their lives during the course of these fires. I again offer my heartfelt condolences and hope that the conclusion of these proceedings today will provide some clarity and helps in your path to healing. I acknowledge the ongoing resilience of local communities. There were many individual acts of kindness, selflessness and bravery during the course of active firefighting efforts, but also in the lead up to and aftermath of the fires. The camaraderie shown as they pulled together during relief and recovery efforts was remarkable. I acknowledge the work and dedication of emergency services personnel, both professional and volunteer, who put their own safety on the line to protect these communities day after day, week after week, month after month during these catastrophic fires. Many of them did so when their own homes and families were at risk from the fires. Tragically, some also lost their lives. These were selfless and brave acts, and the community owes them a debt of gratitude. I acknowledge the work and dedication of police and the Rural Fire Service in conducting investigations following the aftermath of the fires. The assistance received from legal representatives of parties involved during the inquiry is to be commended. In particular, the work required by agencies in responding to the Coronial investigation and these proceedings has been substantial, often occurring alongside other ongoing operational responsibilities, whether firefighting work or the protection of people and property. Finally, I would like to express my appreciation and gratitude for the extraordinary and tireless work done by my assisting team during the conduct of the Coronial investigation and throughout the course of this inquiry. This has been an enormous undertaking. The subject matter was technically complex, but also vast in scale. A substantial amount of work was required for more than 3 years, and I cannot understate the importance of each person's contribution to this outcome. I now close the inquests and inquiries arising from the 2019-2020 New South Wales bushfire season.
Please will stand as Coroners Clause now.